Thank you for joining us for the CFP Board's Business Update webinar. I'm Louis Barajas, and I'm pleased to be the host for today's event. And for those of you who may not know me, I'm a fee-only certified financial planner and registered investment advisor since 1990, author of also 5 books, and my focus has always been in advancing diversity in the financial planning profession and working with the underserved. So today we are broadcasting live from beautiful Santa Monica, California, where the weather is just unbelievable, actually, and we're having a great time today. But the CFP Board of Directors just completed its regular July meeting, and during today's webinar, we'll hear update from the Board of Directors meeting with a focus on some of the CFP Board's priorities for 2013, including discussions on the CFP Board's work to increase public awareness of CFP professionals, the growth of the CFP professional community, including the New Women's Initiative, and the CFP Board's public policy advocacy. We appreciate those of you who have submitted questions in advance for today's program, and we'll try to get to all of those during the webinar. Before we get started, I want to cover a few technical details about this event. During today's event, if you experience issues with the audio for this presentation, or if it appears that the slides displayed don't match up with what we're speaking about, try refreshing the webinar console. On a PC, you can press F5. If you're using a Mac, press Command-R. And if you're on Twitter and want to post about what you hear from us today, use the hashtag CFPBoardBUW. BUW will stand for Business Update Webinar. Please use the question and answer function on your screen to ask questions of our panelists. You may submit your questions at any time during this program, and we'll try to address as many questions as possible during the Q&A session at the end of the program. And if the panel does not get to your question today during our broadcast, the CFP Board will will do a follow-up for your answer. So now, let's get started. We have with us today Nancy Kistner, Chair of CFP Board of Directors, Ray Ferrara, 2013 Chair-elect of the Board of Directors, and Kevin Keller, CFP Board's CEO. Thank you all for joining us. Now, Nancy, I understand that you just wrapped up the latest meeting of the Board of Directors. What updates from the Board's meeting would you like to highlight today?
Thanks, Louis. It's great to have you here in Santa Monica. I realize it's home base, this area for you, but it's nice for CFP Board. We're based in D.C., so to be out here in L.A. is a nice change of pace. And yes, we just got off our board meeting together. There's a lot of good work being done, and there are many opportunities that we're going to share with you today. Usually we look at our July meetings to give us an opportunity to see where we're at with progress towards the organization's goal for the year. And we also start our strategic planning process for the next year. So today we're going to cover a number of those goals, but I really want to thank the leadership of the Financial Planning Association. This week, both in addition to our board meeting, we also had the chance to hold a meeting with FPA's Board of Directors. The focus of the conversation was around continuing education. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. CFP Board has been conducting a study on CE, really with the goal of improving the quality of continuing education that's available to our CFP professionals. Part of this study has really involved getting input from CFP professionals on whether CFP Board should enter the CE business. So before we launched the study, we did share some background on the initiative and its purpose with the leadership at FPA as well as at NAPFA. And since then, we've discussed a number of valid concerns raised by both organizations, and that's why we're in this process to really hear from them. So on the question of whether CFP Board should become a provider of CE, as we've shared with FPA, we're looking at a wide range of issues, and we'll consider all of the input that's provided both by FPA and NAPFA, as well as all of our stakeholders and colleagues before we're going to make any decisions around this. Our meeting, I will tell you, Louis, with the FPA Board this week allowed us the rare opportunity to have a really good face-to-face discussion, and that hasn't happened in a while. We do have ongoing communications, but not board-to-board, face-to-face. So it's always good once in a while to make that happen. And it also gave us the opportunity to reiterate our commitment to keep the lines of communication open, which is always important, as you can understand. We truly appreciate FPA's support of the CFP certification, and that's extremely important. And we really look forward to continuing the good work we've been able to accomplish together through the Financial Planning Coalition as well as through other initiatives.
Nancy, it's good to know that the major organizations that support our profession are communicating and working together. Ray, what can you share about the CFP Board's priorities at this time?
Louis, thank you. The Board has identified 4 overarching outcomes to focus on CFP Board's work for the next several years. These 4 outcomes relate closely to CFP Board's core mission, which of course is to benefit the public by granting the CFP certification and upholding it as the recognized standard in personal financial planning. Awareness of the CFP certification is the first of these overarching outcomes, and that includes public awareness of the sort we are working to generate through our public awareness campaign, which has just completed its second year. And the outcome of awareness also extends to awareness within the financial services industry and among policymakers and thought leaders. The second overarching outcome is growth, and we have been very clear in all of our discussions of this outcome that there will be no lowering of the standards to achieve that growth. The recognition and regulation outcome relates to our long-term goals to see financial planning recognized and regulated as a bona fide profession. And of course, we're doing a lot of that work through the Financial Planning Coalition. And the last is the authority outcome, which relates to a number of opportunities before us to advance financial planning as a rigorous discipline that is relevant not only to educators and professionals, but also to the public. These 4 overarching outcomes highlight key aspects of our core objectives and give us a clear focus for the organization's work in the coming years.
Thank you, Ray. Nancy, can you share updates on the first of these outcomes?
Absolutely. We've got a lot of good news to share, and it's important for everyone involved in the webinar to know that. Public awareness it's really a central part of our awareness outcome that Ray talked a little bit about prior. It's really one of our highest priorities, primarily given its importance for, in our view, the future of the CFP certification, as well as the financial planning profession. We launched our first major advertising campaign, I hope many of you recall, in April 2012. So the campaign has now been underway just over 2 years. So let's revisit what the overall objective is to increase the awareness of CFP professionals, because that's really what the campaign is about. This is the way we're getting out there, and we're seeing some great results because of it, which is good news. The public awareness campaign includes print and online advertisements, and we also do radio and TV ads. So I hope those of you participating today have seen or heard the advertisements. The TV ad has been broadcast on national television cable networks including AMC, CNN, ESPN, Fox News, HGTV, the History Channel, even MSNBC and the Travel Channel. And there have also been some print ads that have appeared in magazines like Fortune and one of my personal favorites, Nat Geo, as I call it, Golf Magazine and Money. And hopefully you've seen some in the business editions of Time Magazine. We have placed sponsorships also. Messages on NPR and online ads have appeared on many, many online properties. So all of the advertisements, the goal is to direct people to our consumer website, which is letsmakeaplan.org. And if you haven't been on that site, I really recommend it. I go on once in a while, and it's just great to see everything that we've really put in place. There are so many resources for the consumer, so it's a great way for them to learn more about the CFP certification and also look up a CFP professional. Since the campaign began, it's really been our marketing team that has been evaluating the success of our advertising and really looking for ways to ensure that we get the most value and impact for our advertising dollars. So, for example, it was last year when we found opportunities to present some advertorial-type messages alongside some of our print ads. And these appeared in issues of magazines that were focused on key personal financial planning topics. And what we tried to do is tie in the topic of the magazine to the benefits of working with a CFP professional. And that's pretty innovative and quite interesting. So this year we secured opportunities to do something similar with some of our television advertising. So as an example, Nat Geo and HGTV produced some short custom vignettes that tied together financial planning topics with the topics of their regular programming. And I think for their audience, it just made the whole concept much more relatable, right? Really tying the CFP and the benefits of financial planning into one's real life circumstances. So for example, on HGTV, we had a real life vignette. It's focused on a small business owner who is balancing her retirement planning with expanding a design business and a new house. And these vignettes, they also ran prior to our TV advertisement. So it's a great way to get our messages out there in a way that is directly relevant to the interests of the viewers. And then just one more note to add. This year we rolled out a fourth print advertisement that highlights the value CFP professionals provide. And for those of us who are CFP professionals, we know there are many, many things on that list. So there's a customizable version that's available to CFP professionals who want to help extend the reach of this campaign in their local communities as well.
Wow, that's really great news, Nancy. And it's great to see the CFP marks out there on TV and radio and in consumer publications. Now, what can you tell us about the impact this advertising campaign is having?
So what you're really asking is, it all sounds great, but at bottom line, how effective is it?
That's right.
So in addition to measuring the effectiveness of individual advertisements on our goal of increased awareness, it's been a key priority to make sure we're able to measure and demonstrate the campaign's overall progress. In fact, that was something we told you we would do, and we continue to stay in front of that. So since the campaign's launch, we've taken opportunities along the way to measure its impact and also give you some data that can be used to fine-tune the campaign. A benchmarking study was conducted before the campaign's launch in 2011, and it really kind of gave us a starting point for measuring progress. And then last year, we followed up with a study at the campaign's one-year point. And then this year, we conducted our second follow-up study to see where we're at 2 years into the campaign. So I'll mention, we shared with this with you before, that we selected a specific target audience, and it's what we call the Mass Affluent Initiators. I kind of shorten it, and my new name is they're called the MAIs for whatever reason, but I just kind of like it. So this target shares very specific demographic and psychographic characteristics, such as those that you see here in the presentation. And all of our public awareness campaign materials and strategies are designed with this objective and target audience in mind. So since we started, we conducted 2 brand tracking studies and 1 marketing effectiveness study. And across all of these studies, the good news is we see consistent, significant signs of positive momentum. And it's across multiple measures, across multiple audiences. Most importantly, we see signs of positive momentum in what we call unaided awareness, meaning they're thinking of it on their own. We're not having to prompt them. So we're seeing this positive momentum in the unaided awareness levels for mass affluent consumers in general, as well as for our Mass Affluent Initiator target. So to not get too bogged down in the details, when you look at our Mass Affluent Initiator target, the latest brand tracking study shows that we have increased top of mind or first mention awareness by 7 points since the start of the campaign, and total unaided awareness by 4 points. And if you go back to our initial goal for the campaign, we were looking for a 4-point increase in awareness over 4 years. And we are at that level after only 2 years. So we are very pleased with the results, and we hope you are too. So given that our campaign is funded at a fraction of what the leading financial advertisers spend, these results are quite significant. And this is what our marketing professionals tell us, so it's extremely encouraging. So I'm pleased to share that the metrics indicate that our campaign is working. This week, the board of directors had the opportunity to review the campaign's progress to date, and we adopted a resolution to continue the campaign and carry on with this great work that's we're doing and that's getting out there. We made clear that we want to continue the campaign, actually, I should say, utilize some sound research as the basis for marketing and media decisions. And then we also emphasize that we want the campaign's execution to continue to reflect CFP Board's neutral stance on business models and compensation structures. We think that's very important. And it's also important for you to know that we're committed to being excellent stewards of these funds. We have been to date. The funding contributed to the public awareness campaign is dedicated to the direct expenses of the campaign and is not used to fund other CFP activities. The funding for the campaign is quite substantial, but as I mentioned, it's really nowhere near the advertising budgets of other organizations in the financial services industry. So we're making good progress, being good stewards of the funds, and making sure they're directed to the campaign.
Thank you, Nancy. Ray, one of our audience members asked how the marketing efforts are impacting the increased awareness of the consumer client in relation to improvement in our advisor usage rates. How is this being monitored or tracked?
Louis, thank you, and thank our viewer for the question. If you look at this like a funnel, you'll see that awareness is at the top. People have to be aware of the designation, and then hopefully that leads to a preference to use the designation, and then ultimately leading to the intent to actually call and engage a CFP professional. In other words, people tend to be aware before they become familiar, then become more familiar before they see relevance, and then we hope that everyone who becomes aware of the CFP certification will seek out a CFP professional. But the reality is not everyone will immediately take that step. Our research includes questions that seek to measure intent to hire a CFP professional, but there are limits on how accurately we can measure those increases in the number of people who actually do seek out a CFP professional. And of course, everyone who is listening today can help us by simply, when they first visit with a prospective client, ask how they happen to seek them out and learn whether the CFP certification played a role in that decision.
Thank you, Ray. Now, one of our audience members shared a story along this line. He writes, I was at lunch with an individual who I haven't discussed businesses with in several years, and he wanted to know, now what designation do you have again? Told him CFP, to which he responded, oh yeah, you guys advertise on NPR. Yes, indeed.
Well, that's what we like to hear, no question, and that's what the campaign is all about. And I hope that we'll hear more similar stories and that they'll be shared with CFP Board. I hope all of you will consider how you can help extend the reach of the campaign. And again, going back to what Nancy mentioned earlier, be sure to go to letsmakeaplan.org in order to take advantage of all of the material that is out there, a lot of which can be used at your own website.
And Ray, how can we as individual CFP professionals help with that?
Well, our advertising dollars are focused on national outlets, so there is much that people can do to help share the campaign materials in their own local communities, as I just mentioned, even on your own website, using the resources from our public awareness toolkit. The toolkit includes things such as customizable client letters that CFP professionals can send to clients and potential clients to highlight their qualifications as a CFP professional and encourage them to take the next steps in their financial planning. Downloadable artwork for the new CFP mark, advertisements that you can customize for your own use to help us extend the message, and every time it's out on the net or anywhere else, it helps. video files and instructions for adding the online banners and TV spot videos to your website, a social media guide with suggestions for how you can help share our campaign messages with your networks. We hope all CFP professionals will take the time to look at the toolkit materials and find ways to use the resources. And again, I just can't encourage you enough to take a look at what is there for you to use in the toolkit. And it'll be updated with new materials like the new chess print that we shared earlier today.
You know, I'd like to remind everybody that the effort to increase awareness is a two-pronged attack. A big part of it is the paid public awareness campaign, which is being funded by the certificant community. But the second piece is what we call the earned media. Those are the efforts that we take to increase our public relations, our consumer outreach activities. They make a big impact on awareness as well. Again, we call this the earned media to differentiate it from the paid public awareness campaign. Our public relation efforts, including the earned media, are playing an important role in our work to increase awareness and visibility among consumers, policymakers, and within the financial services industry. CFP certification and CFP board representatives, including our consumer advocate and our CFP board ambassadors, continue to be featured in top-tier consumer publications like USA Today, the New York Times, as well as on national television broadcasts like the Today Show. Now, if we had to buy the coverage that we enjoy through these efforts through the first few months of 2013, it's estimated that it would cost over $35 million.
That's a lot of money, Kevin. It's great to see that CFP professionals in the media now. I know there are growing numbers of CFP professionals across the U.S. who are sharing their expertise through regular appearances in local radio, TV, and newspapers. So, Ray, what can you share with the CFP board and what they're doing to achieve its growth outcome?
One of the things that CFP board has done is it has really charged our wonderful staff folks to make this a very major initiative. And we have one of those BHAGs, those very big goals out there. And the core objective of our strategic focus in recent years has been to ensure that financial professionals recognize, seek, and maintain their CFP certification. In fact, right now, our renewal rate is running at 97%. And there are 68,000 CFP professionals today.
Actually, Ray, as of today, there are 68,670. We're almost to 69,000. Sorry to interrupt.
Not at all.
That's great.
But I know each day you know exactly the number. And that's about 20% more than what we had 5 years ago. When all of us reflect back on the economic times that we've come through the last 5 years, there really is amazing growth.
I just want to add one thing, Ray. That's U.S. All over the world, we're over 140,000 CFP professionals. It's important for everyone to know.
And while people typically think of the CFA charter as, you know, large, there are actually more CFP professionals in the world than there are CFA charter holders.
So based on the data from Sorelli at the end of 2012, only about 18% of the total number of practicing financial advisors are practicing CFP professionals. And obviously not every financial advisor is going to become a CFP professional. In fact, some are not eligible to become a CFP professional. But these numbers clearly show the opportunity. And as we continue our work to raise the awareness of the value of CFP professionals and the services they provide, we expect to see growing consumer demand for their financial planning services. And in fact, in serving the public, which is what we do, the best way we can do that is to make sure that there will be more CFP professionals available to meet the growing need.
So in what ways will you be pursuing this growth?
Louis, there are a lot of different ways to approach the growth. The hundreds of academic programs that offer a CFP Board-approved curriculum, are great partners in support of the CFP certification, and their input and insights have been very valuable to us in identifying ways to keep people engaged in pursuit of certification. We want to help increase enrollment and student retention at our registered programs and help these programs graduates keep moving forward on their path to CFP certification and their career development. In addition to working with education programs, we also have great opportunities to work with the financial services firms where these graduates are likely to seek work. And this, of course, is all size firms, the local CFP, the mid-size firm, the large companies. We're working with them to maintain that momentum, and we're reaching out to other firms to encourage them to begin or strengthen their support of CFP professionals. And recently, we just announced a new women's initiative as part of our growth strategies. Sad to say that only 23% of the 68,600, and I missed the last 70 CFP professionals are female. That's a statistic that really, unfortunately, hasn't budged in a decade. And when you look at other fields like education, medicine, and law, you see much more gender parity. So CFP Board is undertaking a new initiative seeking to address this. We want to identify the challenges women face when becoming certified and beginning a career in financial planning. And we want to identify solutions to increase the ranks of female CFP professionals. There is research needed to identify where in the certification process women tend to stop or slow their pursuit of the CFP certification. Are there perceptions of financial planning or CFP certification that are keeping women away from our registered programs? Are they enrolling in our registered programs but not completing them? Are they graduating from registered programs but not registering to take the exam? There are a lot of outstanding questions to delve into before we can develop solutions, but to lead on this initiative, CFP Board has appointed a Women's Initiative Advisory Panel made up of leading experts in the financial planning field. And I'm sure you'll recognize a number of the individuals who are serving on the Women's Advisory Panel, including our board chair, Nancy Kistner, who will lead this effort as the panel's chair.
Thanks, Ray. I'm pleased to be a part of this new initiative. It's very near and dear to my heart. You can see from the list of panel members, there's a great group: Alexa Von Tobel, founder of LearnVest; Bob Glusky, former chair; Karen Schaefer, former chair, both of CFP Board; Kate Healy, managing director of TD Ameritrade; Mindy Diamond, a consultant with Diamond Consultants; Mary Beth Franklin, she's a journalist. I'm sure you've seen her retirement planning pieces and investment news, along with Lizetta Braxton, Kathleen McQuiggan of Catalina Leadership, and then Eleanor Blaney, who's been instrumental in this effort. We're doing a lot of great work. We're increasingly seeing women looking to other women for financial advice. I was in May at a conference representing CFP Board, speaking around these issues. We're out in front on the topic with key leaders, and I would say that growing the ranks of female CFP professionals not only makes good business sense, but it really builds the heart and soul of this profession, what we're all about. And it's all about helping Americans achieve financial security, which I know, Louis, you can relate to.
Thank you, Nancy. That's really impactful. Now, it's good to see the CFP Board bringing attention to this, but I think that we're all aware that the financial planning profession doesn't reflect diversity in the U.S. population. So one of our audience members asked an important follow-up question. How is the CFP Board in incorporating a more overarching diversity initiative similar to the new Women's Initiative, for example, for African Americans, Latinos, et cetera?
Louis, that's a great question. As we look forward to growing the CFP professional community, diversity is an important concern. When we discussed this Women's Initiative, we understood that it would also help us establish a framework that can be used to identify and overcome obstacles that may be preventing individuals from other demographic communities from pursuing a career as a CFP professional. So this new initiative, important in its own right, is also a first step toward a more overarching diversity initiative.
Thanks, Kevin. But I know many of us in the CFP professional community have experiences and expertise that will be valuable to CFP Board as you move forward with these types of initiatives. Now, Kevin, can you review with us some of the public policy issues that the CFP Board and the Financial Planning Coalition have been engaged with?
Indeed. The long-term goal for our engagement with public policy is recognition and regulation of financial planners. We continue to work with the Financial Planning Coalition to evaluate strategies to advance this goal while continuing to advocate within public policy debates related to financial services for positions that benefit the public. Advocacy for a uniform fiduciary standard is one of the key issues that CFP Board and the Financial Planning Coalition have been focused on recently. The Dodd-Frank legislation authorized the SEC to move forward with rulemaking that would put in place for both broker-dealers and investment advisors a fiduciary standard, and now this is key, and we're going to keep coming back to this, that is no less stringent than what currently applies to investment advisors under the Advisors Act, or the so-called 40 Act. CFP Board and the Financial Planning Coalition support the extension of a uniform fiduciary standard to conduct of broker-dealers when providing personalized investment advice to retail customers, again, consistent with that no less stringent requirement of Dodd-Frank. We believe investors would benefit by having broker-dealers operate under a fiduciary standard that's no less stringent than the standard that currently applies to investment advisors. Recently, the fiduciary standard has been back in the spotlight. In March, the SEC released a request for information and data about the benefits and the costs of putting in place a uniform fiduciary standard for broker-dealers and investment advisors. We were pleased to see the SEC move forward on the fiduciary standard. However, in that March release, there were some assumptions in their request for information that we found troubling and that raised concerns that the standard the SEC was describing in its request would not be consistent with Dodd-Frank and, again, that key phrase, no less stringent, the requirement that was in a part of the Dodd-Frank bill. As we spoke to our colleagues in the Financial Planning Coalition and at other consumer, industry, and state regulatory organizations, we recognized that we weren't the only ones concerned about the SEC's assumptions. So in June, CFP Board joined with 8 other organizations to send a letter expressing those concerns to SEC Chair Mary Jo White. We noted that the SEC's assumptions appeared to leave out key elements of the fiduciary standard, such as that all-important obligation to act in the best interest of the customer. We reiterated our support for a uniform fiduciary standard, but noted that the assumptions appeared to describe a fiduciary duty that would be weaker than that currently imposed under the Advisors Act, and a duty that came close to being a version of the suitability standard with just some additional disclosure requirements. Last week, the Financial Planning Coalition filed its official response to the SEC's request for information. We again outlined some of the key flaws we identified in the SEC's assumptions about the fiduciary standard, and perhaps more importantly, we provided data from a new study that supports the adoption of a fiduciary standard. The study was conducted by the ITE Group, and it showed that a client-first standard does not limit advice to mass market clients. The study revealed that broker-dealers working under a client-first standard experience greater success compared to those operating under a suitability standard and without a significant increase in their cost. The broker-dealers responding to the survey who were already operating under the fiduciary standard reported stronger asset growth and stronger revenue growth. And the survey respondents who had converted from fee-based brokerage accounts to fiduciary accounts reported no increase in cost or decreased services. This is important information the SEC needs to hear, especially when they're hearing from those opposed to a client-first fiduciary standard that a true fiduciary standard would be burdensome, costly, and remove the availability of financial services from mass market consumers. We will continue to work with the SEC to encourage it to proceed with the adoption of a uniform fiduciary standard consistent with the Dodd-Frank law.
Thank you, Kevin. Now, I've got another question here for Nancy.
Sure.
And says, what are you doing to promote the difference between CFP certification holders and other financial advisors, insurance agents, et cetera?
Well, I'll tell you, we are working to do just that through a number of different initiatives, Louis. The goal of our public awareness campaign, as I mentioned and Ray talked about, is to really increase that awareness of CFP professionals. The campaign messages really highlight the CFP certification and also highlight the qualities that make CFP professionals stand out from other types of advisors. That's the idea behind it. We've also been addressing the issue of consumer confusion about the proliferation of financial services designations through our public policy and media outreach. So how are we doing that? Well, we've provided comments to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's the CFPB that was created under Dodd-Frank reform. And we've been providing comments about the need for consumers to be able to identify meaningful financial credentials, especially for older Americans, seniors who are frequent targets for financial abuse. In fact, actually, we just put out a piece that's available on our website specifically speaking to financial defense for seniors. So something that certainly is worth checking out. In addition to that, we're pleased that the Bureau actually highlighted that need in its recent report. So we've had this nice partnership opportunity with them. I would also mention our media outreach has highlighted the need for people to be able to identify quality credentials, and we promote CFP certification as the standard that people should look for when they're seeking financial planning services.
Thank you, Nancy. And Ray, I'm going to give you this question next because it was given to us by Ray Benton.
Ray to Ray.
Ray to Ray. So, why have you dropped the focus on one profession, one designation?
Ray, we have not dropped our focus on one designation. I hope from the things that we've shared today, all the things that we are trying to do to promote the CFP designation. But I want to remind you that our mission is to uphold the CFP certification as the standard for financial planning and to benefit the public. I'd be remiss, however, if I didn't recognize our partners, the Financial Planning Association, who recently reaffirmed its commitment to the one profession, one designation goal. CFP Board has expressed our appreciation and support of FPA for making that reaffirmation and for continuing its strong support of the CFP certification, and that was demonstrated again this week while we were together here in Santa Monica. We just can't thank them enough.
And I would also add that our friends at NAPFA, the National Association of Personal Financial Advisors, have equally recognized the value of CFP certification, as back in 2012 they have made CFP certification a requirement for their practicing member category, and so we are equally appreciative of their recognition of CFP certification as the standard as well.
It's been one of the major benefits that we've been able to do together with as Financial Planning Coalition partners.
Thank you, Ray. Now we've got a question from Keith Nocum who says that, please explain clearly your government relations imperative. Are you solely an advocate of the public or the consumers, or are you also or instead an advocate of the CFP professional? To whom is the CFP Board of Standards, Inc. duty of loyalty, the profession or the consumer? That's a great question.
Yes, thanks for the question, Keith. I'll take that, Louis.
Okay.
The public is at the center of our public policy and other work. The core objective is really for our work in public policy to influence policy to benefit the public and increase access for all to competent and ethical financial planning. That is our core mission at the end of the day. That reflects our nonprofit status and our mission, as I said, to benefit the public by granting and upholding the CFP certification. But I would also add, Keith, that we are obviously, while doing that as our primary focus, we are advocating for CFP professionals. An important part of our work is really to educate policymakers and legislators. It's why we are on the Hill about the importance of our CFP certification and the consumer protections it provides, just as we were talking about prior around senior self-defense against financial abuse and so on and so on. So fortunately, with our focus on the public, it in turn is benefiting the CFP professional and the standards that a professional upholds.
I think maybe one way, Keith, to think about this is that while our obligation is to the public, the way we benefit the public is through the good work that CFP professionals do every day.
Great. Thank you, Kevin and Nancy. Now I've got a question from Bill Hayes, who says that should the CFP board back away from its efforts to encourage one fiduciary standards, as this would not differentiate the marks from broker-dealers? Now, why would you then pursue the marks if there was no distinction between a broker and a CFP professional? Ray, maybe you can answer this.
Bill, I have a registered investment advisory firm in Clearwater, Florida, and have had since the late 80s, and have worked under the fiduciary standard. And clearly over those 20-plus years, there have been opportunities and times when people have perceived, thankfully, that working under a fiduciary standard is better for them, and have chosen to work with our firm as a result. However, from the CFP board's point of view, if everyone in the public was served at a fiduciary standard of care as opposed to a suitability standard of care, then that advice would be better suited or be better for them. I want to stress, though, that it's not about fiduciary, non-fiduciary, or fiduciary suitability about getting the CFP certification, because that is around competence and ethics. It's around the enforcement of the mark, and still sets you apart from those who either can't or aren't willing to seek out the designation.
Thank you, Ray. Now, I'm going to ask a question here that Randall Wall has sent in. Is, does the CFP Board and the Financial Planning Coalition envision the abandonment of financial planning by broker-dealers if this uniform standard is passed? I hear that any uniform standards would be much less stringent.
I probably should have pointed out, Louis, earlier that I've been around so long, I have what the FINRA now calls a Series 1 registration. So I have been a registered representative with the NASD pre-FINRA since 1971. So I have lived and still live in both worlds as a hybrid advisor. And in that case, there are obviously going to be times where a particular client in a particular situation is going to be better suited to work with a registered representative, and perhaps under a suitability standard in today's world, but hopefully as a fiduciary on a go-forward basis. So I don't think that will drive broker-dealers away from financial planning. To the contrary, I think it will drive them towards providing financial planning to a much wider, more diverse group than is being served today.
Great. Thank you, Ray.
You know, Louis, I think our research that we conducted for the public awareness campaign really validates what Ray just said, because when we talk to consumers, what they tell us they want is a more holistic look, and the financial planning process spells that out in detail. And when financial services firms survey their prospective customers, they're the same prospective customers essentially that we are looking at for CFP certification. They're hearing the same thing. And so CFP certification is excellent preparation to help individuals transition from the traditional one-off or the traditional transactional mindset to a more holistic advice way of business.
Thanks, Kevin. And so in view of the vast resources the CFP Board has spent to no avail on attempting to influence legislation to have one fiduciary standard for advisors and brokers, would the CFP Board now consider using its resources to educate the public on the difference between the two standards?
Well, first of all, I'm going to take exception that we've spent vast resources. Clearly, we have been working to support the fiduciary standard, and that work does include highlighting the difference between the fiduciary standard and the lesser standards. We will continue to work to help policymakers and the public understand why the fiduciary standard is the appropriate standard for financial advice. CFP Board and our partners at the Financial Planning Coalition have had a number of significant successes. A number of the provisions that are included in Dodd-Frank would not have been there unless we had proposed them or provided our strong support. And we have been successful in preventing some legislation that might have harmed the public.
Thank you, Kevin. Now I've got another question here from Alan Duck, who says the aging planner population would suggest greater numbers of planners leaving or dying at their posts. No offense to anybody in the room. But statistically, few have a planned succession plan or have prepared their clients for a possibly negative situation. This is not in the client's best interest and might have be seen as a fiduciary issue. Does the board see a written succession plan as a requisite for planners who carry the CFP designation?
Alan, I'm not quite sure why Louis looked at me when he was talking about that.
It might have been that Series 1 joke that you told me. So,
we usually let Ray take these questions.
I think it's easy to say that part of the CFP certification is not about succession planning. It's about competent and ethical financial planning. However, obviously succession planning is important, and I think the great part is that our two partners, the Financial Planning Association and NAPA, both have placed an emphasis on this, have programs available to help planners with those succession planning. And I would say to all of you that it is never too soon to be thinking about the succession planning. It's not something that you want to wait for until you get within a few years of retirement. It's something that you want to plan for your whole life. Does that sound like retirement planning when we're talking to our clients? So, Alan, I would really suggest please visit with NAPA, visit with the FPA. They've got some great programs to help you with that.
Great. Thank you, Ray. I think I'm going to give you a break next. All right. So we've got a question from Anna Iglai, I think, and it says, Nancy mentioned that there are customizable ads. Are they available through the CFP website, and are they FINRA approved?
Well, let me take that one perhaps, okay. Louis. Customized ads are available in our toolkit, and the website address for that is www.cfp.net/toolkit. Now, the ads are customizable, but once you've customized them, you still must submit those to FINRA for approval.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. Got another question from Mitch Owens. Mitch says, have you done any focus groups with your target audience?
I'll take that one, folks, since I've sat behind the wall. We have indeed. In preparation for the launch of the public awareness campaign, we conducted significant research, not only on the target audience of CFP professionals, but of CFP advisors and even non-CFP advisors. And that research that we did helped us narrow the target down for the public awareness campaign. And you heard Nancy earlier say that that target is the mass affluent initiator. That's essentially, if you will, a proprietary term that we've crafted to reflect the person who is most likely to seek a CFP professional. So focus groups, quantitative research to validate the findings that we heard in the focus groups, and then ongoing research over time to support the public awareness campaign.
Thank you, Kevin. We've got another question here. It says, okay, now maybe Nancy can help us out with this one. Why can't we include a link to the CFP Board's advertising campaign to our blog or website to promote the CFP mark? By Lee Pence.
Well, Lee, I would say we would love to have all CFP professionals linked to our public awareness campaign website, which is letsmakeaplan.org, as we mentioned earlier. That's the place to go, bookmark it, and check out the site. We are continually adding new material to that website, really, as I said, to help consumers get started with financial planning and also for them to understand why it is important to work with a CFP professional. Most recently, actually, our consumer advocate, Eleanor Blaney, who's a CFP professional, she launched a new blog on the site. So please visit the site, consider sharing the blog posts with your clients and also your prospective clients. And if you have issues with your compliance department, for those of you in large firms, I'm one in a large firm, and I guess I shouldn't say if you have issues, typically we do, all the time. But if they do have concerns about linking to our public awareness campaign website, or if you want more information about use of the campaign resources we have provided to CFP professionals, just let us know. We're happy to speak to your compliance staff or help get you the information you need as to how to address it with them specifically. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, we've got a question here from Sasha, I think it's Alenkina. And this is off topic, but was wondering, how does the majority of revenue from annual certification fees get used? Thanks.
Good question. Kevin, you want to start?
Sure, I'll be happy to. First of all, CFP Board has a very rigorous budgeting process, and it starts with the mission of benefiting the public and then goes through a framework of the 4 overarching outcomes. Again, those are awareness, growth, recognition and regulation of financial planning, as well as authority. So in the budgeting process, we are looking at things that are responsive to our mission and help us achieve those 4 overarching outcomes. It's not a majority goes in any one place, but a big chunk of our of the fees support our community outreach and our public relations, the consumer advocate, and our consumer ambassadors. Enforcement is a big chunk. One of the reasons that I think CFP Board has such high credibility among policymakers, among regulators, among the consumer finance press is that they know not only do we have a code of ethics, there are 140 or maybe 200 different designations. They all have a code of ethics. But CFP Board is one of the few, there can't be more than I can count on one hand, of the designations where they actually enforce that code of ethics. Other expenses include enforcement of the use of the marks, research that supports the body of knowledge. CFP Board conducts the largest study on the practice of financial planning in the world, and that's necessary for us to have a legally defensible examination. So there are a number of different areas that sometimes folks may not be aware of, but that are important to us achieving and delivering on our mission.
And I'd add, from the board's perspective, we carefully approve the budget to start with, monitor it. We have 4 members of our board that are members of the public, who are outside of the industry, who add that additional perspective to the way the money is utilized. So I would hope that the certificants would feel that it's being well spent by staff and being well monitored by the board.
Thank you, Kevin and Ray. Another question we have here from Kathy Oakley. She states that please share the results of the survey done on women students in financial planning programs.
Well, I will take that one, Louis. Kathy, we intend to share our results of our research in regards to the Women's Initiative in a white paper. So that's to come. Please be on the lookout for it. And as I said, excited to actually get a question around it, given that we've just sort of kicked off this initiative in the past couple months. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Another question here from Ann Wall. I gave a recent issue of investment news to one of my female colleague students. Now, this particular issue had several articles dealing with women in the profession. I encourage this finance student to enroll in a board-certified graduate program and pursue the CFP mark.
What do we say except way to go, Ann?
That's great.
Thank you.
That's terrific news. That's what we all need to focus on, is really encouraging, because there's a lot of women that are interested, and this is a natural profession, so to speak, for women. And so many tell me all the time, yet they're just not sure how to enter in, what it might look like, how to get there. And we have a lot of great women CFP professionals who have actually led this profession. Past CFP board members like Alex Armstrong, Karen Schaefer, and the list goes on and on. So we've got great role models, and it's just about creating the awareness and then helping them through the process.
Yeah, and it seems like they're also wonderful mentors, because I've seen them mentor other women as well.
Absolutely.
You know, there's implicit, though, in Anna's comment is something that I think might be helpful to think about. Anna, if I understood it correctly, encouraged somebody to enter a graduate program. And for somebody, I'm not saying a graduate program is for everybody, but when you're talking to folks about possibly becoming certified, the effort that it takes to become certified, you can do that through a certificate program, and we have many people who do. If you have your bachelor's, that baccalaureate degree doesn't matter. But I would encourage people to think about the option of a master's degree program, because not only are you eligible to sit for the CFP certification, but you have the additional, I think, benefit of having that master's degree as a part of your CV.
So another question from Timothy Jiang, which says, more and more Americans are involving in international finance activities at personal levels. Now, will the CFP board add international personal financial planning materials into future CFP training and certification? Who'd like to answer that?
But hopefully we can latch on to the good work that's being done by the 70,000 CFP professionals that are around the world. Most notably, the Financial Planning Standards Board, VET. They represent 24 countries, of which the United States is one, that have the resources available. And if you do have international questions, and particularly if they're in any of those other 23 countries, we would be delighted to hook you up with one of those folks to be able to help you in that regard.
All right. Thank you. And John Levy says, asks a question here. There's a large number of CFPs or also CPAs, including many PFS credential holders who are also CFPs. Now, what's the board doing to integrate the interests of these members into the board's perspective and actions? Now, based on some of the recent actions or decisions, it would appear that the CFP-related organizations, such as the FPA and the NAPA, are trying distancing the CFP credentials from the CPA profession.
Wow, I'm going to try and answer that. There was a lot in there.
There's a lot. Yeah.
I'm not sure if I followed it correctly. If I'm hearing the question correctly, is it Timothy, did you say? I'm not sure.
It's John.
John. How are we integrating the other designations such as CPA and PFS into the CFP? Board and designation, I'm not sure I'm at the crux of the question.
So first of all, let's start by saying that for the frustrated accountant, a CFP designation, a frustrated accountant who wants to serve clients, we think a CFP designation is a great way to go. We work very closely with the accountants on a number of policy issues from time to time, and we welcome accountants, and we have a number of PFSs, including one that's on our board of directors. John Connell is a CPA PFS, so where there's nothing intentional about moving away from the work that we do. The personal financial planning section of the AICPA serves a number of folks, but we think, and we might be biased, we could be biased. We are biased. In fact, you might even say we're paid to be biased, but we think that the profession, the emerging profession of financial planning is best served when there's one singular standard. And that's not that their standard is wrong. It's not. I know there's great continuing education and training available from AICPA, and we welcome that. We don't see it competitive, but we do believe that the profession of financial planning is best served when there's one singular standard, and we think that the fact that there are 68,670 and more everyday CFP professionals speaks to the validity of CFP being that standard.
And I think you hit on an operative term, financial planning. I think it depends on the practice. Is the practice on accounting, or if it's truly going in the financial planning direction, then CFP designation makes a whole lot of sense for that CPA. I will tell you, just in my firm alone, I have several planners within our group who are CPA, CFP, and they believe in both, and they're strong and specialized in accounting alongside being loving having that holistic through view of things, which is what the CFP designation brought to their practice.
I'd also be remiss if we didn't mention the good work that we're doing with the AICPA in responding to a lot of the public policy areas in which we're participating on behalf of CFP certificants, on behalf of CPAs, and on behalf of PFSs.
And on behalf of the public.
I was just going to say, and all of that with an aim towards benefiting the public.
There are friends of Fiduciary.
Right.
Great, thanks. I've got a question here from Jeffrey Waters. And Jeffrey says, does the way that letter from the SEC was worded alarm you and make you believe that despite all of our efforts, the brokerage industry is still really calling the shots in this process? Maybe we need to get more aggressive, and are you reaching out to key journalists on this issue?
I think the outreach that we along with our coalition partners and the other folks in the Friends of Fiduciary organization have really done a wonderful job. The comments, of course, have just been submitted early at the beginning of this month. We'll have to wait to see how the SEC responds to those comments. But I think it is fair to say that we have a concern about the way the request was made. Some of the words that they used seem not to be consistent, at least in our mind, with the intent of Dodd-Frank on the not less stringent than that Kevin spoke to earlier. So yes, there is concern, and we have, along with all of our partners, have made it very clear that we're not willing to budge on the less stringent than rule that's in legislation. And, of course, there are those on the other side that disagree with us, and we'll have to see how it comes out. But I can assure you that with what we're doing from public policy standpoint is working very hard to make sure that they hear your voice.
And the other thing that we're doing is we are working to find common ground where we are. I'm not so sure sometimes that there isn't more common ground than might first be obvious.
Great. Well, thank you. So we're just about out of time. And so, Nancy, what parting thoughts would you like to share with our audience?
Well, Louis, I would first just like to thank you for your work here today, and most importantly for all your contributions in support of CFP certification and the profession, especially in the diverse marketplace and space that you work in. You've brought a lot of great value to that. And I want to encourage you all to stay engaged with the work that we're doing and to get involved with CFP Board's initiatives. You can do that through volunteering, also through continued participation in events like these. The more people that are participating in this type of platform aren't asking those questions, wondering what CFP Board is doing. So stay involved, continue to get more involved. We really appreciate it. And we're all thankful, I have to tell you, to be part of a profession with so many people willing to contribute their time and their expertise to our shared goals. So thank you, Louis, and thanks to everyone participating.
Thank you, Nancy. Ray?
Louis, I have to echo Nancy's thanks to you and to the entire CFP professional community. I'd like to encourage all CFP professionals to look at the ways that you can connect with our public awareness campaign and expand its reach within your community. We're taking care of the national advertising, and you can help make sure that people who see the ads connect with your CFP certification. Take a look at the resources, once again, at the Public Awareness Campaign Toolkit, and consider how you can use them to enhance the way you present your CFP certification to your clients and prospective clients. Let us know if you have thoughts for additional resources that you would find useful.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you very much. Kevin?
You know, we all want to see more CFP professionals using the resources in the Public Awareness Campaign Toolkit. I'd also encourage you to take a look at another resource CFP Board released earlier this year. It's our Financial Planning Competency Handbook. It is the first offering under that fourth overarching outcome of authority. It is a result of a great project that brought together expertise from the academic and the practitioner communities by featuring the work of 21 contributors. There have been books in the past that have been primarily academic, and there have been practitioner books, but for the first time, the Competency Handbook has brought together both the theory and the practice of financial planning, so it's appropriate for practitioners as well as for students and faculty. We've received great feedback from a number of people who have taken a look at the book, and I'd like to thank everyone who contributed to this project, and I hope that all of you will add it to your reading list.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I just want you to know that I have right now on my desk the Financial Planning Competency Handbook. So
do I. That's great to hear.
There we go. Great. So thank you all for sharing the update on the CFP Board's work, and to everyone for joining us for today's webinar. And a recording of this presentation will be posted to the CFP Board's website within the next week, and the CFP Board will follow up with those who asked questions we did not have time to address during this broadcast. The CFP Board welcomes your comments regarding this program and your suggestions for future programs at webinars@cfpboard.org. And again, send it to webinars@cfpboard.org. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend, and be safe.